Great. So raise your hand if you think that anybody could discover these laws given the right observations. Okay, so here's your question. Do you think that we could do that?
Yeah.
Are you guys scientists?
Yeah.
Am I a scientist?
Yeah.
Do you think we can do it?
Yeah.
I think so too. So that's what we're going to start doing today. We are going to take observations. We are going to think about different phenomena. And we're going to see if we can come up with Newton's laws on our own. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because we're putting, there's no force, we're not putting any force on the rock, we're putting force on the paper, and then it flings, and that's so it flings, and then the rock is also because of force.
I think
The paper, like, reduces the friction on the paper because the rock is really smooth, and when they pull, it slides off because of the friction.
So what if instead of paper or an index card it was sandpaper? Do you think it's the same?
Yeah, because the friction is really rough.
So what would happen?
And when we pull the long things in the sandpaper, then we pull them, and it's
All right. Anyone have any thoughts about Brooks' reflection? Anyone agree, disagree, want to add to that? No, what do you think?
I agree with Brooks' answer because like when we experimented on the catalyst, when we pulled it or flipped it, the rock fell in because it had the weight almost like in the rock. It had more weight than the next part. And once we like pulled it, then it fell into it for the speed. The force of like gravity.
Okay. So you think the mass of the rock played a role in it? The fact that it was heavier than the paper? Okay. So if we had something that was less heavy than the paper, what do you think would happen? Something different or the same thing? Talk to groups. What do you think? Same thing or different thing?
same thing,
All right. Raise your hand if you think it's going to be the same thing. Same thing would happen. Raise your hand if you think something different would happen. Okay, let's find out. I want you guys to tear off a tiny, tiny corner of your paper. Okay, crumple it up. Does this weigh less than our index card probably?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, let's go ahead and put that on top. And then pull it out. See what happens. So, raise your hand if you saw the same thing happen. Raise your hand if something different happened. Okay. What did you guys observe?
The paper ball would fly with the piece of paper because I guess it was too light and
Okay. Now, you want to add to that?
I like to say that maybe because we notice that because of our index card, it's kind of bumpy and stuff, and that's why, because then it wouldn't catch it smoothly.
So what if you had a nice smooth index card?
If the reaction might have been different, the same
The same as what?
as the rock.
Okay. Okay. Continue.
I think that it did something different because the ball of paper isn't as heavy as the rock, and the rock is kind of like it's kind of easier because it doesn't like fly with the bars.
Okay. Alright. So did you guys experience something different or the same? Different. Okay. Like?
I saw both.
So
Because
both. Okay.
because I did it a couple of times, and sometimes it landed in, and sometimes it flew with the paper.
Okay. Did you guys all experience that? That sometimes it went in, sometimes it didn't, just depending on kind of how you pulled it or pushed it?
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of depending on the force, right? You're going to see different reactions. All right, good. So go ahead and keep those at the top of your table. We'll again in a little bit. We'll talk about why we're seeing what we're seeing. But today we're going to be talking a little bit more about Newton and his laws. That I think is kind of awesome about science is that unlike in the other subjects, when somebody discovers something, the idea is often far, far more important than the person. Here's what I mean by that. Think about it in your literature class, or in Miss Easton's class. When you guys read a book, if the author of that book had never been born, would that book still have been written? Nope. No, it wouldn't have. Because people have really unique thoughts and, expressing things creatively that's really, really different from science. But I want you guys to think about if Sir Isaac Newton had never been born, would we still know about Newton's laws?
No.
Talk to us about it. What do you think?
He wasn't born, there wouldn't be Isaac Newton's law, but it could be someone else's law.
Yeah.
So that would be...
Yeah, we maybe be called something else, but the exact same.
Vivian, what do you think?
So I think we would still know about them because you said that, like, for example, the book, you said that the author has their own opinions and they have their own thoughts. But for like science, for things like this, like anyone could have thought of that. So if like he wasn't born, someone else could have thought of the laws.
Okay. Okay. Is what if Sir Isaac Newton was a different race? What if the color of his skin was different? What if he was from somewhere in Africa or an island? What if he was a girl? What if he came from a very poor family? What I want you to think about is, would he still be one of the most famous scientists of all time? Talk to groups. What do you think? Come from this background. What do you think, Lance?
I don't think he would because back then it was still like, I don't think it was like still people learning from black people and that men were better than women. So if he founded all these libraries, they wouldn't listen to him. And if he was from a poor family, they probably would think that because he's so uneducated, he probably just made this stuff up from that, which not really true.
Good thoughts. Vanessa, what do you think?
When we were talking with our group, so we started saying that he would probably still be like still think about it, but then once heard something about he wouldn't have any word to learn. I mean, she, because he said about if he was a she, and if she didn't have the word to learn, then she wouldn't be able to discover music so well.
Dania.
I think that since he said that he was poor, I don't think that he would have followed the laws because if he was poor, he would have probably liked to be working all the time and helping the family out. So I don't think he would be thinking about science and stuff
If he had not had the color skin that he did, if he didn't live where he did, if he didn't have the money that he did, he probably wouldn't be credited for making all these discoveries. Right? Centuries before Newton published these laws, people were still thinking about these things. Okay? People were still talking about them. But they didn't get the credit that Newton did. Because Newton was in the right place at the right time.